Ladies and gentlemen, this interview is brought to you by Burn Up Coaching and the 21-Day Challenge. If you're an entrepreneur or high achiever and you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, or you're ready to just kick it up to the next level, then the 21-Day Challenge is going to help you reignite your passion, your self-belief, your clarity for your purpose, and be able to break it down into bite-sized steps. The very first thing we're going to do is really design that vision, mission, strategy, objectives for your life, be able to break it down into bite-sized steps, and over the 21 days, you're going to focus on a single-minded target. The most important thing for you. I'm going to support you every single day in that and make sure that you have that very supported, high-touch, communication on a daily basis, daily check-ins, weekly deep dive calls to make sure that you're uncovering limiting beliefs and also dialing in your morning and nighttime routines to make sure that you're on fire and kicking butt. So if you're interested and committed, send me an email, chris@beyourgps, or a message on Facebook and let me know that you're ready to dive in and become your greatest possible self. Also, this interview is brought to you by our iTunes review of the week, and this one says, I met Chris at a live event and knew he had a knack for attracting great people to his show. Because he is authentic and high energy himself, that's the kind of people he invites to his show. The result is some of the best practical, applicable advice you can get from people who have done the work themselves and can share what they've learned to shorten the learning curve for yourself. This is a great podcast. I really loved the episode with Lyra Kay because I could so relate to the kinds of mistakes that coaches make in building their business. So thanks so much for leaving that. It says it was left by someone named A Great Podcast. So I don't know who that is, but A Great Podcast. Thanks for leaving it. And if you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes and give us that feedback. Or you can search Become Your Greatest Possible Self on iTunes or search it on Facebook and find us like that and give us that feedback so that we can grow into our greatest possible self. Thanks so much in advance for doing that. This next woman is going to bring the heat. She's been on the show before, and it was an absolute blast. She is a powerhouse, so make sure you stick through the entire interview because she's going to be sharing the gold and the wisdom to help you become your greatest possible self. Pull out your pen, your paper, get ready to write some notes because Petalyn is a genius. Petalyn lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. She is a speaker on the national stage and has appeared on the Authenticity Show and on Your Tango. She received her Doctor of Divinity in 1994 as a certified executive coach and a certified divorce coach. In her private practice, she specializes in supporting her clients through positive career and divorce strategies, and her superpower is her intuition and ability to strengthen her clients' esteem and confidence through their important life changes and to rebuild community after it. And Petalyn is here to rock the house with us. Are you ready to do this, Petalyn? Let's do it, right? Let's do it.
Am.
Let's do it. We're fired up.
I'm just saying, this is like way past my bedtime. So, anything goes at this point, right?
I love it. Well, seriously, thanks so much for being on here today. You're an absolute doll, and it's so much fun to have you on and really dive into these topics. I remember the last interview was so much fun. So we're going to have a blast today. And let's start off with the topic, with the theme of the day, which is facing your fears. So what does this mean to you, Petalyn? What does facing your fears mean to you?
So, that's an ongoing process, right? No matter where we are or where we think we are or where anybody is, this is an ongoing process of facing our fears. And in a sense, I like what Brandon was saying right before me, and I love that you were trying to pin him down to give exactly how do you do this, So facing your fears, the first thing you have to do is that I do, and I can just share what I do and what I suggest to my clients to do is understand that the hardest thing about facing our fears is the fear itself. What we make up about the monster under the bed, right? So once we kind of go, okay, brave up, turn the lights on and just decide to look under the bed, we find that there's either nothing there or it's just, our cat or something as a metaphor. But the point is, the only way I can describe it is just simply drop in, take a breath, stop. Whatever you're doing, because when we're afraid, especially here in the West, we tend to like run on overdrive. We just keep we get busy, and right. we just keep running. First thing we have to do is the antithesis of that, which is drop and stop, or stop and drop, whatever. Yeah. And breathe. I loved how you started the day off of this 12-hour marathon, and how often do we take the time to just connect with our body through our breath. Or through anything, just the feeling of the vibration in our body, the tingling, just the awareness that our body is a living creature just to tap in and go, all that other stuff is a human construct. It's a social construct, right? We're making it up. We've made this whole world up together in our head. There's really nothing to it. The only thing that's real is our body here now, breathing, eating, loving, going to the bathroom, brushing, whatever. Yeah. It's just, this is what's real. So the first thing is to stop and drop in. And I guarantee you, when we start to practice that more and more, it takes the fear out of just doing that. Because what am I going to discover when I stop and drop, right? What am I going to discover? Is it going to be something I can't handle? Here's the thing. You have been handling things all your life. There really isn't anything that we cannot handle in this moment, right here, right now, one bite size at a time. So that's the long answer. So really just stop. Connect to your body and just go, okay, am I in jail? No. Is there a fire? No. Am I being attacked? No. Okay, so what's the next thing? I'm not in survival mode right this second. Can you hear me? The huge truck.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. So barring any immediate emergencies to your physical environment, then what's going on in your heart? Connect to your heart. Breathe into your heart. Feel your heartbeat. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I think, the big thing that I heard is fear as a construct itself, because it's not like we're in danger. So it's all perceived fear. It's all, what we make it mean. There's a lot of meaning behind it versus actually being endangering our physical existence of, and dying. Like that, our mind might think that might happen. It might exaggerate or pretend that is a possibility through our fears, through, what if I get a bad grade? What if I don't get the client? What if I mess up the kiss on the first date? All those things like that could lead to quote unquote death is what our mind makes it mean, but it's not literal death. And I hear that to overcome that, or to recognize when that's happening, is to drop into our heart, our center, and be able to just be present so that we can allow the fear to be recognized, to kind of put a spotlight on it, and to recognize, wait, we're actually safe, and this is just something that I made up in my mind. Do I choose to keep entertaining it or not? And no, okay, what am I going to create instead? So I think that's really what I took away from what you shared.
Beautiful. Will you do the rest for me? No, that's really true. And I mean, there are two main things that we're afraid of, right? I mean, for me, when I talk, what does fear mean to me? Fear means to me this, that I'm looking at the entirety of my life and going, what if I fail? And what that does, and I mean, and I'm kind of an A type, so I deal with anxiety all the time. I'm managing my anxiety. I'm an expert on that all the time. And I've learned to leverage it as a good thing. When it pops up, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. If that's how you tick, then why not use it and leverage it in some way that's positive, right? Because it's one of your internal systems. But I digress. What I notice is that typically we are afraid of just two things. Just two. We're afraid of living, and we're afraid of dying. And what we make up about living our whole life, or living our month, or living our day, or living the next 5 minutes, that's entirely up to us to decide what that is. And ultimately, when we're not allowing ourselves to decide what that is, to take a breath and go, how do I want to move through the next 5 minutes or the next hour? Then we're thinking too big. Then we're becoming afraid of dying. Essentially, I remember, I think it was Psychology 101. They said the main thing that everyone's afraid of is they're afraid of annihilation, and in a sense, that's really true. Especially in the West, we do not know how to handle the endings of things. We're really good at going off on new ideas and things like that, but we're not really good at endings, and we're not really good at cleaning up our own trash.
And that's like West as in the Western society versus, let's say, Eastern society, which is like Asia and those countries who have like celebrations when their people pass on, and like that there's death is not this dreaded end date, but rather it's just a passing through to another phase of consciousness, or our journey, our soul's journey, kind of thing.
Yeah, when I say the West, thank you for clarifying that. When I say the West, I'm really talking about countries, societies, political movements that are constructed around consumerism. Because consumerism is it's a way of life.
Yeah.
It's a psychology. It is an indoctrination. It's all of this. Yeah. And it's really difficult to see our blind spots around that, and we intuitively, because we are living creatures that have been born out of all the elements around us, born out of the earth, then we are coded to that, right? And so when we stop and drop into ourselves, each of us is capable of hearing what's really true for us. And it isn't just what's really true for us, it's what's true for our network of humanity and life on all of Earth, right? So so I think that in my opinion, that is our pain, is the extent to which we pull in both directions, and we're in between. It's like, okay, we're being, pulled by consumerism. It's Halloween. Oh my gosh, go buy a $200 costume and, show up and, I don't know, display yourself and have fun and whatever. I don't do the whole Halloween thing myself because I wasn't raised here in the States. But, and then on the other side, what's the meaning of my life? Brandon talked about legacy. And here in the United States, at least, I'm noticing that my thinking is changing about legacy. Just maybe a year ago, I was thinking, okay, what's my legacy? And the more I started thinking about that, the less I actually even liked the question. Because it's like it sets you up to think about me. It sets me up to think about me. Right? Yeah. What's my legacy? What's this big impression that I'm going to make? What's my big impact that I'm going to make? And when I drop in, and when more and more conversations that I'm having, I'm noticing that when people are dropping in, they really are moving, obviously, from the me to the we. Yeah. They're moving in the direction of healing our lost connections to one another, healing our lost connections to the earth, healing, rehabilitating our sense, even our definition of community. And here's the thing, when it comes to our way of life, our consumer way of life, we don't even really know, we no longer really know what community means, in terms of that belly to belly, I'll take responsibility for you. We'll look out for each other, neighborhood, whatever that might be, Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I also hear a big thing that's been coming up for me is brotherhood. Yes. Like in this state and phase of my life, season of my life, I'm coming to grips and to terms with, like, I have really been lacking in my divine masculine empowerment, and in the security and the trust of having a really powerful brotherhood of other men who are stepping into their divine masculine. That's like, it's like there's so much, like, it's a really, everything is getting construed and twisted, like, because of consumerism, and how, like, all these different trends are being pushed onto us, how we compare ourselves with celebrities, and when they do things to, get attention or whatever it might be, it's like we're always trying to compare ourselves. And I think it's just, for me, seeing that brotherhood is such a key aspect of me stepping into my masculine power, my impact, my fulfillment, my joy, my connection, my community is super important. So I really totally resonate with that.
That's beautiful. I love that. Love that. It is true. And you brought up a really good point that I talk about in my how to apply the 7 levels of community through transition. Yeah. Several of the one of them is the sacred. a level of sacredness.
Hmm.
And that's if you are if you strive to be conscious and to become more conscious. And I think no matter where we are, no matter who, someone else's opinion of us, I believe that we are always on the path of trying to become more conscious, even if we look really backwards to somebody else. You got to go down before you go up several times, right? But yeah, the level of the sacred, bringing that into your sense of community is huge. And then the other thing that we don't really think about too much is the level of trust. Trust is enormous, and it begins to take us. It's something that we do suffer a lack of, a connection to what it truly means to trust and to offer our trust. In a sense, sometimes it has to be blind trust.
Right.
The same way when we fall in love and we give blind trust to somebody we don't really know very well. However, we tend to be more exacting with our neighbors, and rather than what do we have in common? What is it that we're all interested in? Would we benefit from looking out for each other? More than, sort of like looking at your neighbor through the window and what's he doing? What's he driving? And oh, look at her daughter, how she's dressed. Oh, that's really, really bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the sacred and the level of trust and also going back to what's humane. Our own humanity in terms of humaneness. Again, it's dropping in and trying to efforting and cultivating a practice of what makes me real, what makes me real to me, and what feels really good to my body as I breathe into that realness.
So one thing I don't mean to divert you, but I wanted to know where this came from, this philosophy, the 7 the levels of community to life transition. Where did that even come from? How did you get to this place of studying that and wanting that to be a big focus for you?
That's a great question. Well, it seemed trying to figure out, should I go back or should I stay where I am? So briefly, I was raised abroad. Okay. And I was raised in 7 different countries, 8 different countries before I was 20, went to 10 different high schools. I moved a lot. We changed, I was always the new girl. Right? The focus was always on me. What's the new girl? Who is she? What's she going to do? Oh, she's weird or whatever. And you're always, and so that's kind of where I learned to be anxious, self-conscious and all of that. But I was also fortunate enough to be raised by 2 very independent business owners, separate businesses, both of them entrepreneurs in their own rights. And so what those experiences gave me was a really deep experience of knowing what it means to not be raised in community, in a consistent community, to be able not just to be raised, but to be cultivated, to be formed, to be shaped, to see one's reflection in that community to any deep extent. We pretty much stayed wherever we stayed, maybe a year or 2.
What I hear in that as well is when you have a stable foundation, you can dig your roots into who am I. There's that identity level of who am I, and through functions and stuff like that of the community of wherever you're planting your roots, you create that identity, and there's a level of certainty and solidity in that identity. It sounds like that was missing for you.
That was missing for me, and of course, and that's an idealized version of community, right? Most of us have a lot of issues with the communities that we were raised in, right? Whether it's the family or the school or the neighborhood or whatever, or the country, right? So of course, understand that I was an only child, and I was moved around a lot. Okay, so I really felt like I didn't get to have the benefit of a sibling, so my community was still very small. Didn't get to grow up with the same friends all my life, so that was very small. However, but what my point is, what that did was it gave me a really good understanding of the value of community and what it does for us. It stretches us, it grows us. for better or for worse.
Right.
We get a sense of who we are as reflected by other people. You get a sense of your boundaries. So I had to learn that. I had to learn that later in life. And as an only child, one thing about only children, it seems like, is we become very analytical and we become very, so if you move this to the left, what happens to the space around that? You know, so it's really kind of cool in a sense because we make good students of exactly how things work. But so I had to learn that later in life when I finally moved to the States. And the benefit, however, of that is that you begin to truly realize, as you look around, you realize in truth that everyone is just making it up. And there's power in that, because then we can really choose, right? But at some point we have to commit. Otherwise, you spend years like I did, where you just sort of float around and you sort of dip in here to this community and dip into that community, and you don't really anchor, right? You don't anchor in. And I think in our culture in the States too, one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to sample. We like sampling, you know, whether we're sampling religions or we're sampling, you know, online communities, or we're sampling coaches, or we're sampling whatever. We like to sample. And then the next new thing that comes along, oh my gosh, you know, that's a whole other level. That's beautiful, because it does give us many lenses to look at the same topic, right? Whether it's the same issue that we're dealing with year after year after year, it gives us texture and different perspectives in on that. But at some point, it doesn't really matter what you choose. Choose something, right? Just pick something, because in order to go deep, that's why I have an issue with people who search for what's free on the internet, you know, because that's only ever going to take you to a certain level. Right. You know, you've got to go deep. So whether it's your religion that you have issues with, or your friend, or your family, or you know, the YMCA, it doesn't matter. Just, you know, find out what you can really sink in and learn from it deeply, because it isn't about the philosophy. It isn't about the religion. It isn't about the network. It's really how am I responding in that? So I go to church every Sunday, not because I really agree with my church. I have trouble with it. I always have. Okay. I am not a good representation of a Catholic. Okay. But one of the reasons I go is because it challenges me constantly. It makes me bump up against my, I don't like that. Okay, well, you know, why don't I like that? You know, let's just say that you're right. But, you know, but let's just explore that for a little while. Is there something in it that I might learn about myself? So again, it isn't about what's out there. It's about how do we respond inside. It's really the relationship is with ourselves, getting to know ourselves. Because we get to know ourselves because of this network of humanity. We begin to truly understand and empathize with our brothers and our sisters, and with the planet at large, and yada, yada, yada. That's all that, you know? Yeah.
Wow. So that's powerful. So that community you've noticed is something that helped you like really step into who you are and be rooted and grounded, and you discovered that whatever it might be, sampling can only take you so deep, it can only connect you so much, it can only bring so much fulfillment and joy and meaning to our lives. So to really have that deep connection, fulfillment, and meaning, it like we have to choose and just like go deep in that, whatever it is. There might be like, I think that there's always going to be parts that we don't necessarily agree with in every community or organization. And like you said, it's about how does that reflect in me? How do I show up in spite of that knowledge, or in lieu, or, you know, because of that knowledge, because of that thing, how do I show up? How do I choose to respond in that situation or circumstance? And that gives us a lot of education and wisdom about who we are as people and what areas we have to grow in.
It also helps us to find our true communities, because the deeper we get to know ourselves, the more we understand what we require in order to become necessary to others. Yeah. Right? We know more about what we have that's available inside of us to give. And we also know what we require more. So it's a process that cannot help but lead us to become better aligned with the right and attract the right communities for us. And it does get richer and richer, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to have issues, but it does become a richer experience. And to answer your original question, through my work with women who are going through career transitions or life transitions, and different stages of life, or marital transitions, as in divorce, what is true consistently is that none of us does anything in a vacuum. We are always doing it in spite of or in community. So there's always a relationship in community. When I say community, I don't just mean like your neighborhood, people filled with strangers, people you don't know. I mean a communion, if you will, of souls who are moving through life together, even as strangers, right?
And that could be two, like as long as it's more than one, then it's a communion, right? Two or more.
Yeah, absolutely. Beginning with ourselves, what's our relationship? Again, it's about it. It's interesting, right? It's like that outer relationship with others, again, is another way of getting to know what we require and what's valuable in us. There's a beautiful book, I don't know if you read it, by Sebastian Junger, called Tribe. And one of the question that is really, that the entire book is hinged on, is that in our culture here, things have become easier. Quality of life has gone up in general. And technology has taken over in so many different ways. And what it leaves us with under the surface that we are afraid, under the bed that we're afraid to look at, is an increasing sense that we are no longer necessary. Wow. And when I read that question, I just had to pause, because it totally resonated. And I think that's one of the reasons we keep moving so fast and we don't want to stop, is because we don't want to face the fact that we are afraid that we are no longer necessary. Wow. So again, when it comes to community, finding the others, Timothy Leary says, find the others, right? Finding the others is extremely, it's necessary to living. It's necessary to life. It's necessary to building a legacy. It's necessary to discover yourself. And I don't want to sound like I'm some huge expert in terms of, this is how you're going to do community, and you do this first, second, third, and fourth. This is something that's a relationship. It's an organic thing. Candace Pert, who discovered the endorphin receptor, she came toward the end of her life. She said she liked to describe the human body as a flickering flame, not a lump of meat. Meaning that it's always organic, it's always changing, it's always moving, it's always healing and going into disease. And the environment, more than genetics, the environment is what affects us more than anything else. And it's constantly in response. So when we think of our community and the way that we engage with others, whether it's one other or a community that we're, like hot on the trot for, or whatever it might be, there's an organic dynamicism that is constantly happening, because it is an exchange. It's an exchange of energies. It's an exchange of, of life force. And forgive me if this sounds really esoteric. It's really not. There's science to back all of this stuff up. I just, I don't want to use the time to, but you know what I mean. I mean, you just look on the internet, read books. It's all there. Yeah.
Awesome. So
what was the question?
Yeah. So these levels. Was it mainly created because you wanted to understand how a community affects us and affects how we show up, in the organic aspect and nature of it, or like what was the drive to create it?
So the drive to create it was really to figure out how we can truly reconnect with the original need for community, back in the time when we lived in villages. So a great book, I highly recommend it, by Johann Hari, called Lost Connections. The question he posed was, okay, because, back up a little bit. A huge motivation for me in going down this path is everyone, it seems to me, is suffering from depression. I think everyone I know suffers from depression in some way, and they don't know what to do about it, or anxiety, and they
Right.
don't know what to do about it. I've known several people who have, either attempted or thought about suicide. One person I know keeps a suicide kit under her bed. There's no, and I mean, this stuff, this is a problem. This is a problem that concerns all of us.
Yeah.
And it should, and it needs to, and we need to stop this. So what is it that we're missing? So Johann Hari talks about his question is, what if? And he suffered from depression all his life, and he went through the whole gamut from back when, the I can't remember, the DSM, the Diagnostic Symptoms Manual of Psychologists, thought that it was all in your head. And you just needed talk therapy, and you get to the bottom of it, and so on. And then they evolved over to, with neuroscience and so on, well, your brain chemistry is off, so we'll just give you drugs, and one of the things that I discovered, if you look online, just as, first level search, look online, WebMD, to see what are the symptoms of depression. They talk about things like you're listless, or you're not sleeping, or you don't have an appetite, or whatever. There is nothing in the list of symptoms that says anything about what's going on in your life, or what you're missing, or if there's an event. There's one bullet point that maybe there's an event within the last 7 days that might have happened. And I'm like, what? So my point is, what he asked is, what if there's nothing really wrong with all these people who are the increasing amount of depression that there is in the world? What if depression is a form of grief for the connections that we have lost but still need?
Wow.
And again, that speaks so directly to us as human beings, as humans being, and how we be in the world, and our relationship with ourselves. Just going back to square one, like going back to the breath, right. Going back to what is the original, what is truth? What do I know? Wow. Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. So it was created because the community, you mentioned, like the community were disconnected, and we want to find out, like, what does it take to really have that connection again, and to understand why this depression is happening, to understand, what can we really do now to create effective community that is fulfilling and rejuvenating.
Yeah, to rehabilitate our definition and our requirements of community, to really rehabilitate how we see it, that it isn't this abstraction that we have come to think of it. There's actually very core, very natural reasons for it, and that we haven't outgrown it psychologically or physically, but our lifestyle has taken us out of the type of living that fills us in that way, that allows us to be whole and to recognize ourselves as whole. So, one of the things that I've been looking at more and more are eco villages, and it took me a long time to kind of even just notice that there was that term, eco village. And what I love about that term, so of course I looked it up, it's like the divine just sort of goes, here's a word for you, try this, and then you follow that path, right? Yep. And there are hundreds of them all over the world. So this is in our consciousness right now. This is in our collective right now. The harder that life gets to just simply put food on the table and keep a roof over our head, right, the more people are saying there has got to be a better way and an easier way when we share the labor. In a sense, right? We share those things so that we can then, with those things taken care of, we can then figure out, what does it mean to be human anymore? So yeah, so the 7 levels of community really came out of a desire to examine why community is important, what we've lost, and what we need to really look at when we are deciding how we want to invest ourselves and become who we want to become necessary to, and what we have to pour into that, and what we require as well, by really taking an honest look at ourselves as people and where we want to go, and all of that.
Beautiful. So can let's start diving into, you mentioned a couple of the levels already, and just get like a little bit more specific and tactical about how we can apply these to our life right now and really start seeing those benefits.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, like I say, with trust, for instance, trust is something that we have to examine in ourselves. Who do we trust? Why do we trust them? What's the level of trust that we are willing to give to anybody? Right? Again, what we need to do is really simple, but explaining it can sometimes not sound very simple. But and I mean, I have a program that goes into all of this in a much, much, much deeper dive, right? This is not something you can just kind of say in 5 minutes. But I will say that obviously trust is a huge part of it. What is sacred? Deciding how you want to spend your life. First off, you kind of have to look at yourself. Where is it that you want to go on the outside? What is it? Who is it that you want to be on the inside as you move to that? So when it comes to, for instance, I'm going to go outside a little bit of the box of your question here. Okay. For instance, when it comes to my women who have decided that they want to go through a divorce, they want to have a divorce. My question to them is always, what will make going through this experience worth it in the end? And who do you want to be in order to go through it, so that when you come out the other side, you can look back on it and say, I'm really proud of myself. I built myself up in this particular way because of how I showed up. So what happens there? This isn't about community, but it requires similar levels of thinking and being. As you know, how we do one thing is pretty much how we do everything. There's always some reflection, right? So what do I know when it comes to trust? How do you trust yourself to go through an experience and go, okay, no matter how it comes out on the other side, I will know that this is how I behaved, and this was true for me. So we start off with, what is it that you know about yourself, right? What is it that you know about another person, or a community, or a group of people, or whatever it might be, a club? And start there. Get really clear about it. One of the reasons I like handwriting is because it's, and you know this, right, is that it becomes systematic. It's a kinesthetic experience. Right. Typing, not so much, but for some people, typing, I don't know, maybe it becomes that for them. For me, no. So start to examine, what does trust mean, and what does it mean for you? What do you know about yourself? What are you willing to what can you trust in yourself? How can you trust yourself to show up? What's the maximum? So you're not letting yourself down, you're not letting others down, right? What can you be trusted to do and to be, right? And start with the lowest common denominator. What is the minimum people can trust you with? What is the minimum you can trust yourself with, no matter what's going on in your life, right? And build on that. So, and of course, the meta part of trust is to simply make the decision that you're just going to trust, knowing that we are all frail, we are all full of, flaws, that we will all disappoint one another, and to not have that get in the way, like it's, to allow for that, to trust that we are going to step on each other's toes and we're going to hurt one another, but to trust that you can also figure out how to get past that and to get through it, if at all possible.
So this is analyzing this one aspect of community, which is trust, and especially in ourselves, it's a quality, really meditating on the quality of trust, so that we can recognize, how do we show up around it, how do we relate to it, how do we understand it, how are we it, really, like, we get to see what does trust mean to us? And then based on what comes up, then we get to start redefining what we want it to mean and where we want to go with trust to be able to create a more fulfilling experience and journey on life, in life on this planet.
Yes, exactly that. And to not hold trust just to mean, this is an important thing, to not hold trust to just mean, well, I'm going to trust somebody until they hurt me. I'll trust them if this and that and the other, if these conditions are right. So there is a level of trust that in this particular context that must be universal. It must be carte blanche in a sense. And that's why it must include that others will hurt you, that others will disappoint you, that you will disappoint others. So you build in kind of a system for how to handle that when it happens. Because the idea is to gain more information so that your trust can actually build even more. And as you get to know each other better. Right.
And so there's an anticipation right now for most people. I think it is what I'm hearing is there's an anticipation that, well, trust should work all the time and everyone shouldn't let me down. So I'm going to expect that they're not going to let me down. And if they do, then see, I knew I was right that they were going to let me down. And then there's resentment about it versus, hey, I know I'm 100% trusting and I know I'm going to let people down. I know they're going to let people down or they're going to let me down. So with that in mind, we're going to do our best and we're going to keep building the foundation knowing that everyone is doing their best and I have discernment. I trust myself and, we'll just keep moving forward. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool. Awesome. So trust is a big function. What are some of the other, is that a level? Trust is a level of this?
It is a level, and the thing with levels is that they're sort of malleable, so they sometimes sound like values, like integrity. It can be a value and so on, and it sometimes sounds like a myth, right? But truly, the values are the seed of what will create a community that is right for you, on many different levels. And so the idea is to, as we decide the who and the where and the what for us, the more levels that we have playing in that particular community, the stronger that community is for us. So our reasons become stacked. We stack our reasons to be in a community. So I say another level is our humanity, being humane, and again, it comes down to how do we treat ourselves and how do we treat one another, with kindness, with compassion, with empathy. Where is our humanity? So many of us feel really it's a level of the humane specifically. So many of us feel humane around animals or kids or our elders, or for somebody who is sick or whatever. The idea, though, is to carry that heart-centered level from your heart into every connection that you make, because we are related. We do share soul in a sense.
Instead of the illusion of separation, disconnection, and you are different than me, you are not me, we get to say, hey, I am you, you are me, I am that I am, right? All that like mindset, really stepping into that. And then remembering, how would I treat the person who I love the most, elders, cats, kids, babies, whatever, and how do I take that level of love and service and compassion and grace to people who like a bum on the street, who someone might ordinarily not have any compassion or grace or tolerance for, kind of thing.
Yes, because that person on the street is you.
Yeah, it's
a version of us, right? It's a version of our soul, and he or she does affect us, and we affect them. But it's one of the things I want to mention here is that getting in touch with our ability to be humane begins with our body. Remembering how to be humane to our first creature, the first pet that we were born with, which is our body.
First
right?
pet.
It's true. It's the first sentient being that we're given, right? It's
That's
this
so
this
cool.
intelligent, flickering flame that is
Wow.
going to be our partner for our entire life, and it
Holy moly.
has a lot to say. And it really is a forgiving creature. I mean, depend if you like dogs, you like cats. You know, it really will work with you until it drops.
Mm.
And so our humane our level of humanity really begins with how do we treat our body,
Mm.
and to become compassionate with our sentient creature. That, you know, we're not just mind. There is no body mind connection. It is the same thing.
Mm.
You know, body is mind, mind is body. Mind lives in the totality of your body. Your brain isn't just up here. Your brain is your entire nervous system. You know, there is information going on and being exchanged constantly.
Yeah.
There's more information going from your heart to your brain than from your brain to your heart.
Wow.
So when we lead through our heart, we are actually, so I don't, you know, Heart Math Institute?
Yep.
Yeah. So they talk about this. They talk about when you walk into a room, the hearts of everybody else, the magnetic field of everyone's heart will pick up on your magnetic field long before your brain's magnetic fields will connect.
Wow. Yeah.
So leading with our heart and being in our heart is extremely vital. And I think in Buddhism there is a practice where you can just simply walk through your day, walk down the street, whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you are, and say, you know, something to yourself, to everyone that you see, I wish you joy.
Wow.
I wish you, sorry, I had a call coming, I had to turn that one off. I wish you joy. I wish you kindness. I wish you happiness. And really what that means is you're leading with your heart and you're putting out that vibe. Right. And I encourage everybody who, if anybody is listening to this, to just try that. Just, it's a simple practice. The most powerful practices are the simplest, right?
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. So we talked about being humane. We talked about trust. That's super powerful. What are the other levels that you feel we need to at least be aware of at this point?
Well, one that's really important and will calibrate everything really is being in touch with nature. You know, our natural level, the level of nature. And whatever that means for you. It can be, and I really mean like get outside, put your feet in the water, in the ocean, literally hug a tree and just dare somebody to show up as you're doing it, you know. I have a huggy tree. I love my huggy tree. That's where I go and I lean on my huggy tree, or I hug it or whatever, and just do that for 2 minutes. But here's what I'm going to ask everyone to do, right? Is, and of course, total permission not to, but why not? Take your shoes off every day. Find some ground, whether it's dirt, grass, whatever it might be, in your garden, in the park, doesn't matter. Take your shoes off, put your feet on the ground, and breathe, and reconnect. Just let the passage of nature and air and breath move through your body, so that you disappear, and you become part of everything that your senses are picking up, you know?
Yeah.
So your eyes begin to listen, your ears begin to see farther than you can see, you know, your skin begins to really feel, to feel so much, not only what's on the inside of the body, but on the outside of the body. It's just it's a beautiful experience. Just the experience of being alive is what I'm after here. So nature helps us to really give us an opportunity to quickly drop into what is the experience of being alive.
Yeah, so beautiful. I love it. And especially, you know, nature is like, we are nature, you know?
Yes.
So to that's another with like recognizing our humanity and how we are everyone we see, and you know, mirror reflections. We are those. Like nature is too. Like when we look at the grass and the dirt, like we say we are made of that, you know? Like we literally are born from the earth, from clay, so to speak.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's amazing.
yeah. There's no separating us from the elements on the earth. I mean, we're we are the clay. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so when it comes to levels of community, these are levels because our community is also our world, our earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is a terrestrial kind of community that automatically, when we allow ourselves to be aware in it, and to really get a sense of what we are, how vast we are, when we understand our connection to everything around us, that we're not just this, we're like all that, right?
Yes. Yes.
When we really understand that, we get like a physical and a deep emotional insight about that. It's really hard to feel alone, and it's really hard to not feel powerful, but
Mm.
not in an egocentric
Right.
way,
Right.
but in a sort of in a
Like
what
cosmic
cosmic way.
creation.
Yes, yes, a cosmic way. And then you realize, of course, with that, automatically you recognize your connection to all other life, all
Yeah.
other human beings, all the sounds that are going on, all the movement, all the flies that are darting about, the birds. It's like being able to stop and become the experience of all these things. Have you
Wow.
ever wanted to kind of go, God, I wish I could just like be a spirit so that I could just feel everything happening right now?
Mm.
It's a really great way to do that, is to drop in. Like, I have a technique that I use and that I teach to help people to really drop in and get an experience of that when they practice that.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. So, Petalyn, did we cover all the levels, or is there one or two?
No, but hey, there has to be a surprise here and there. Come on, I can't give all my secrets away. But the others are even more amazing.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about like what the future holds with these levels, and helping us go into that transition, because we do have a couple more minutes left, and I just want to know like what does the future hold for these levels, and what do you think is possible?
So here's what I know, is that it is up to each of us to make the decision
Hmm.
to rehabilitate and heal, our our inner community,
Hmm.
and our community with the people that we live with our neighborhood, within, and also to decide, how do we want to create this. This is the thing. The future really begins, with our decision to say, what kind of world do I want to live in, and what am I willing to do in order to create this, and who do I need to align myself with to do this, because we will not do it on our own. And the illusion that we all need to be, legacy people and impact and, do things on our own, right? The pioneers, is really something that at this point is going to continue to hurt us.
Hmm.
We have to move from, who can I co-create this with? And look for the others, because I guarantee you there are other people who have similar values to you, whether it's education, whether it's music, whether it's whatever it might be, who are hungry and saying, okay, I don't have time to live into my values. I can't do it with all the responsibilities that I have. So find the others and just create a think tank.
Hmm.
And start to ask yourselves, what are we willing to do in order to create this? What does it look like? What might we accomplish? Who's already doing this? Where in the world? And what are they doing? And how might that work for us? But it has to be up to us. Politician won't do it. Tony Robbins won't do it. We have to do it together.
Yeah.
We're the power.
Yeah. I did hear that in the coming years, micro communities, like pods and stuff like that, will be really, really powerful as things get more and more specific and niched, and people are able to get exactly what they need, and the exact qualities of people that they want to tie into and network with and build communities with. We will have more accuracy and precision in, hey, I know what you stand for, I know what your values are, and we'll know how to communicate that, we'll know how to find it, we'll know how to create it and be in it. And so like these like tighter and tighter pods will be created to find people who are just like us, or who we want to achieve a specific goal, may not be just like us, but they may have strengths where we don't have strengths, and we create the community or pod to achieve that specific goal. So as time goes on, different platforms, different, let's say, social media networks, right? Like right now, Facebook covers so much. And in time, because people will want something that's more specialized and customized and gives them the exact experience that they want, people will be creating different products. There will be a lot more developers and people who are able to create the systems and the communities and different stuff like that. So I think it's really cool how everything is becoming a lot more customized so that people get exactly what they want, and they're empowered in their decision and the education process to choose something that's in their highest and best good, at least as far as they're aware, and as far as their life journey says, yeah, that sounds like that's the most logical next thing I should do.
Right. And the cautionary note is, and that is beautiful, and it does absolutely, like you say, it helps us to make decisions. The cautionary note again is to not use that as this is the right way, this is the only way, but to not forget to educate ourselves about other ways, even if it isn't our way, because the idea is, again, we are a network of living beings, right? The idea is to learn from one another. That's what we're here for, is to learn. And to continue to create some sort of evolved version of ourselves, right? So it is not to continue to go our separate ways and become polarized, because we already have enough of that, but it really is to take a meta view. How can we learn from each other and benefit from one another without necessarily needing to be one another, And Facebook is helping with that. There's an amazing article called You Are the Product, which was a book review on the London Book Review blog about reviewing 3 different books. And Facebook is extremely good at more and more separating people out into common interests. So, but what that means is that we no longer, little by little, have view of other people who have a completely different way of thinking of things. And so it robs us really of our ability to debate without being offended, to argue the art of argumentation without to be getting heated, but just to use a platform as education. And as you can see on our political scene, we no longer know how to do that. And that I think is something that we really have to look at within ourselves and begin to take whatever classes you need to take or whatever, but learn how to engage with other people who see things differently and set the tone so that they don't feel offended or threatened, but really, So yes, building on what you're saying, definitely, but also to look outside, again, because what's happening out there also defines what's happening in here, right? It defines us,
Totally. Yeah, and to think that, hey, if I just go into this pod in this little community, but there's wars going on all across the world, it's like, oh yeah, it's totally good, like nothing to worry about. So it's that's ignorant. That's like, I don't know if ignorant. That's like a word that's thrown around. I think it's not tapped into the humanity, not tapped into, hey, there's people out there who are suffering, and they are me. And what am I doing over here, just sitting on my butt, not caring about them, which I think is like, not why we were put here. We were put here to learn how to relate and connect. So, Petalyn, this has been amazing, and people definitely want to know how they can stay connected with you, how they can get more access to this information, how they could potentially work with you. So how do they do that?
Hey, you can go onto my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Petalyn Albert. You can call me. I have a phone number. I think you post that or something, right? Certainly you can email me and at Petalyn@heartfueled.com, or go to my website if you're going through some sort of life transition. If somebody, wants to just chat more, you can make an appointment on there with me. And that's heartfueled.com. So yeah.
Awesome.
I'd be happy to chat with anybody about this. This is ripe stuff, and I think a lot of people are ready to go, how do I do this? I just want to be more connected. Yeah.
I love it. I love seeing it sprout and blossom, and this is just the begin, Petalyn. So you are awesome. Keep up the great creation and the amazing play and work and building and connecting, and just like who you are is a divine miracle. So thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate you. And everyone, definitely stay connected with Petalyn. Follow her, connect with her, Petalyn at heartfueled.com. Send her a text message, call her, whatever the case might be, because she is an awesome human being and definitely one to watch. So, Petalyn, have the best day ever, the best night ever, and we will see you very, very soon, okay?
God bless you.
All right,
Thank you so much. I love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye.